Hi everyone, my name is Leah and I am here tonight to share a little bit of information about Huntington's disease, also known as Huntington's chorea. Huntington's disease is an autosomal dominant disorder and it is caused by a defective HTT gene found on chromosome 4. Huntington's is characterized by a progressive degeneration of nerve cells in the brain. This leads to symptoms such as movement disorders, cognitive disorders, and psychiatric disorders. Symptoms usually appear between ages 30 to age 50. Huntington's has been recorded, as early as the early 1800s. However, it was the work by physician George Huntington in 1872 that really laid firm groundwork for our understanding of some of the patterns of Huntington's disease. So George Huntington was a newly graduated physician in 1871 from Columbia, and he reported on a variety of cases of middle-aged persons who had both dementia and chorea, also known as a type of jerky movement disorder. The cases that he used were not only cases that he studied, but also cases that his father and grandfather had studied. And he was able to determine that there was an autosomal dominant pattern to this specific disease. They also found a familial inheritance from a common ancestor, and that was Geoffrey Francis. He was actually an English immigrant from 1634. His observations were published as On Chorea, and they really laid the groundwork for the future study of Huntington's. Now, as we discussed earlier, Huntington's is caused by mutation in the HTT gene on chromosome 4. There is a specific DNA segment in this gene called a CAG trinucleotide repeat, and it appears more than usual in Huntington's disease. So normally the cytosine, adenine, and guanine base repeats itself 10 to 35 times. However, in Huntington's disease, the CAG segment repeats 36 times or more, with symptoms being present in cases where it repeats 40 times or more. Huntington's disease affects approximately 3 to 7 out of every 100,000 people of European descent, and we also see some cases that can be traced back to persons of Indian descent. Huntington's is diagnosed through a series of neurological exams. So the first thing that a neurologist will do is a series of basic physical examinations. They'll look at motor nerve function, sensory nerve function, as well as psychiatric symptoms. A neurologist may also order a series of imaging to look at the structure of the brain. That could include an MRI or a CT scan. And then lastly, it can be diagnosed through genetic testing, looking for that specific mutated HTT gene. Patients who have Huntington's disease often have chorea, which is that type of jerking, kind of movement disorder. It's an uncontrollable jerking. They would also have dementia, and then later psychiatric or psychosis. Now, unfortunately, at this time, there is no cure for Huntington's disease, and it is eventually a fatal disorder. Medications can be prescribed to help manage the symptoms of Huntington's, and those would include tetrabenazine, antipsychotics, antidepressants, and tranquilizers to help with the movement disorders. Exercise can also be beneficial in early stages of the disease. When we look at the inheritance risk, we see that if a parent has Huntington's disease, there is a 50% chance that their child will have it. Prenatal testing can be done to determine the risk of an unborn child developing Huntington's. The first type of prenatal testing available is CVS testing. This is done in utero between 10 and 13 weeks. During CBS testing, the placenta is tested since it is 99% genetically identical to the fetus itself. Between 15 and 20 weeks, we can do amniocentesis, which can be performed using amniotic fluid. That amniotic fluid actually contains cells from the fetus, which can then be isolated, grown in a lab, and tested for the defective gene. So the last thing we'll look at here is our megatree, and this specifically tracks the HTT gene to common ancestors. So we'll see that the common ancestor is split into two different lineages. So this first lineage actually connects to both the chimpanzee and the flying fox, which is pretty cool. And when we look at the line 2 ancestor, we see that it connects to the pangolin and also to the primate family. So within the primate family, we will see the olive baboon, we'll see the white-cheeked gibbon, we'll see the gorilla, we'll see human beings. And then, although they're not in the primate family, we see similarly along this lineage the Arabic camel as well as the common horse. So thank you so much for spending a little time with me tonight learning about Huntingtons. I hope you learned something interesting, and I'll see you next time.